Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ceres podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by James Fowler. James is an independent hospitality operator based in Southbourne, Dorset, and the owner of the Larder House. Over the past decade, he's built multiple venues on the high street and has become a well-known voice for independents navigating rising costs and shrinking margins. This conversation was recorded just before Christmas, after James had launched a campaign banning Labour MPs from his venues and encouraging other hospitality venues to get involved. And it was mostly behind the proposed changes to business rates. What started off as a local act of frustration has gathered national attention and momentum, striking a chord with operators across hospitality and the pub industry who have felt massively unheard. Since recording, the campaign has gathered quite a swift momentum, and it's gathered industry support with growing media coverage and increasing pressure on government to re-examine how business rates affect businesses like hospitality. While no formal changes have been announced, there has been talks in the media that the government is now putting the issue back in the spotlight. And I do think it's because of people like James. So well done to James and well done to his team that have really gave this a good push. Before we get into it, a quick word about us at Ceres. Running out of stock at the wrong time is an absolute nightmare. That's why at Ceres, we focus on the little things: consistency, clear cut-off times, and orders going out when we say they will. Most businesses don't change suppliers because they're unhappy. They change because something went wrong. And our job is to make sure it doesn't. We supply fish and chip shops, restaurants, pubs, street food all across the UK. And they reorder day after day, week after week. And when the order is due next day, customers know exactly when it's arriving. If you already know what works in your business, reordering shouldn't take any thought. You can find more about us at www.ceres.shop. James, welcome to the Ceres podcast.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
Thank you for joining me on this Sunday afternoon. I know it's family time and, wife time. And yes, here we are talking about restaurants and hospitality. How's it all going down there?
Yeah, good. Obviously, kind of a couple of weeks in the run up to Christmas now. So it's all heads down and kind of full action forwards.
Have you seen a little bit of momentum? Because I think I was talking to I always talk to a lot of people in hospitality, and they sort of said that the beginning of the year was slow, the same, those patterns where it's sort of like post Easter, it gets better and better and better all the way up to sort of Christmas. Whereas they're saying that's not really been the same lately. So how's that been for you?
It's always unpredictable now. So trade's up and down. But strangely, for the first time in a few years, my kind of start of winter months, October, November, have actually been as busy as the summer.
Okay.
Which has been quite promising. I think that's because we changed a few concepts within our restaurant at the beginning point of the year. Yeah, December it's a funny one, having a restaurant in December time, because obviously lots of Christmas parties out.
Yeah.
I do feel for the chefs where they're cooking roast dinners every single day. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've just never really got into as a consumer, like I don't get how we as consumers become obsessed with everything Christmas themed. I'd like to go out and eat what I eat anyway. I don't want to eat, I don't know, a turkey roast dinner with cranberry sauce at the beginning of December. I just want it for Christmas Day, and that's it really. So I get why people do it, but like every sandwich at M&S it's Christmas mania, isn't it?
It's thrown into us, isn't it? I suppose.
But if you don't do it as a restaurant, consumers might not feel like you're that into it. So you're sort of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, really, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried different things over the years, but like you say, it's pretty much a guaranteed earner from a restaurant point of view.
Yeah.
We've got creative with it and done our own twists before and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, really. I just want my turkey around my family table, and that's the only time I have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit, James, about your start in hospitality. What sort of draws you in at the beginning, and how long you've been in the trade?
So I've been in the trade about 26 years now. Truly fell in love with food through my mum's cooking at home. I was going to train at Westminster to be a chef, but then decided to go the academic route and study marine biology at university in North Wales, Bangor University. And then basically as soon as I got there, in the first few months, I ended up opening a student cocktail bar.
Okay.
I defected away from the lectures and after a few months, I just kind of found my passion for food and drink and just kind of, expressing that side of me. So I did finish university, came back from that, and then worked on the beach down in Bournemouth, selling deck chairs for the council for the summer. Then kind of realised that there's no real healthy food on seafronts. It's quite a strange thing when you see beaches around the world and everybody eating tropical fruits, and that's the kind of what you imagine. I went to Costa Rica for a few months and then came back. I ran a little fruit bar on the beach called Pura Vida Fruit Bar from a VW camper van with a thatched roof, working alongside the NHS 5 a day. So it's kind of when that got launched.
Okay.
Just selling smoothies and fruit kebabs. And I saw kids walking past with cans of Coke. I'd offer them a smoothie as like a freebie. Just trying to get people eating healthier on the seafront because it's literally just fried food. And
did it work?
Yeah, it was good. It was great. Yeah, I think we traded for about 130 days over that summer.
Yeah.
Obviously came to the end of it with no kind of real plan, but then a couple of local restaurants offered me jobs, one in the kitchen and one at a lovely boutique hotel. So I kind of went into that and stayed with them for 5 years.
When did you sort of know, like, this is it for me? I don't see myself doing what I studied. I don't see myself doing something else. I see myself doing hospitality.
It's just the fun and playing with ingredients and seeing people's faces when you do something interesting. I mean, even from that fruit bar day, we'd have queues like 50 people long, just waiting for, a cool smoothie, music going on the beach. And then I was down on the beach as well, going to spearfishing. So in my breaks, I'd take myself out there and then I'd sell the fish to the local restaurateur up the road. Who then gave me a job. So it's kind of like that idyllic kind of island lifestyle. Well, I mean, more tropical style. But I turned it into my own little dream, really. Coming back out of university, I kind of learned the importance of cocktails and looking cool, and making posh-looking drinks to entertain people. And then that's kind of what I got involved in at the boutique hotel that we were at. And then from there, just basically started getting like national recognition, and then started doing competitions with like Diageo World Class, and then magazine coverage for the way we used to grow all our herbs and fruits for the actual cocktails. I guess it's just that hands-on. One of my biggest heroes is Jamie Oliver. I kind of grew up with him in school. I'll always be told off for reading his cookbooks at the back of class. And he just fully inspired me to kind of just jump onto food seriously. And then, after, I think it was a Naked Chef, he had his first mention of cocktails. And then I kind of soon learned the importance of cocktails in a dining, food and drink are equally important experience. And that's why I've tried to master both.
Yeah, and I think he sort of legitimized that industry to some degree. I know, like, at the top end, you had like Gordon and that lot, but I think making it normal to everyday people, like mentalists, the likes of Marco and Gordon are like, they're on it, like, and then you got Jamie Oliver that comes in cheeky chappy about it and sort of happy. And I think it made other younger people think, I can do that. Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah, he made it a lot more accessible and fun, and that's what it's really about.
Yeah.
And then I went to a few Michelin-star restaurants and kind of realised how bad their spirit selections and drinks offerings were. And that's what kind of really inspired me that eventually, when I got my own place, I really wanted to put as much attention into detail of the drinks as well as the food.
Yeah.
So back in 2011, I opened my first restaurant, which was called the Larder House. It's still there now, so it's been trading for 15 years as of January this year, or next year. And that's where we are. I've opened a few other places.
What made you choose Southbourne?
I went to school in Southbourne.
Okay.
And there was just one particular venue, which is where I am now, which I always kind of just found it quite interesting and romantic in its kind of approach and just the style of the building. It was all quite quirky and quite old. I always had my eye on it. And then one day it came up for sale and I thought, look, this is the spot I want. And Southbourne's, it was 15 years ago. There wasn't a lot there at all. So it was a bit of a risk. But if you see it now, it's it's a thriving high street, and it's great community feel around there. And I've got quite a few friends. Well, I'm friends with pretty much all the traders. We all hang out together and discuss things.
Yeah.
As we go on to here in a second.
I've only been to Southbourne a couple of times. There was Ricky's place, our mutual friend Ricky.
Yeah.
And then I think I went to a camera shop there once. That's all I remember, I think. Like that's my knowledge about Westbourne. But it seemed nice, and but it seems like you're fairly fixed into the place, that you sort of feel it. With Southbourne, you've become Southbourne, and Southbourne has become you. And obviously, you went to school there, so that makes more sense to me now.
Yeah, it's just been great, and it's things chop and change all the time. There's businesses coming, going, but you see people, everyone smiles. It's that kind of village mentality.
I do think that's quite nice, but if you look at Bournemouth from the outside a bit, aside from the centre, there is all these lots of little pockets and like little areas. You've got Southbourne, Westbourne, all these areas that feel nice. And I think Bristol, it reminds me a lot of Bristol. Bristol's like that. Although you've got like a city centre, you've also got lots of little pockets, and everyone's got their own community where everyone sort of knows each other. And that does feel nice. Like whatever you say, like you can really build a community around your business.
Bristol's my go-to place now for dinner. If I'm not going up to London, it's always Bristol, because, like I say, again, that kind of that camaraderie between traders that you see. And I did a bit of travelling with some Bristol chefs. We did a charity walk for Action Against Hunger, and just meeting those guys and just all the greatest friends, and that kind of really inspired me just to make sure that we really connect with our local traders.
Well, Bristol's just like, there's so much competition that it sort of doesn't feel like your rivals, if that makes sense, like because there's just so much choice anyway. So the great thing is, I was saying to my son the other day, because we're going to Bristol over Christmas, I was saying to my son the other day, I says, do you fancy going and finding a nice local burger place, not a chain? And he was like, yeah, that sounds good. And you'll find one in Bristol all day long. Like whatever you want that's locally owned, you can find in Bristol. You don't have to rely on the chains. And he's 10, 11. So he likes the chains, but he also knows that in Bristol he's going to find something grassroots as well.
Yeah, something very special.
And I think, to be fair though, and I don't think the likes of Bournemouth is that far behind, to be honest. I think that there's lots of grassroots places in Bournemouth too, to be honest. That's my thoughts. I don't know if anyone who listens to this disagrees, but
it's getting there. I mean, it's been better in the past. Like you say, the town centre's not the
no.
We want it to be. I used to spend a lot of time there growing up, and it was great back then. But the council got to do something to fix that situation.
Usually, I'd say that's a bit of nostalgia. Like that, we all sort of say, oh, when I was younger, it was great. Although when we were younger, we probably thought it was naff. But now we get a bit older, we think, oh. But then I went to the NatWest once in Bournemouth, and I was waiting for it to open, and I really couldn't wait until they opened those doors. I was just standing there thinking, my God, what a shithole, honestly. And then I was telling a friend of mine who's based in Westbourne, and he just said, Stelios, because I'd never want to go to Bournemouth Town Centre ever. It's just changed. So I think a lot of people have noticed the change. It's not just you.
And it's absolutely bizarre, because we've got one of the best catering colleges in the country there.
Yeah.
And you'd expect there to be like a movement of great restaurants and things, but it's sadly not really.
People are going to the college maybe and just going and getting work elsewhere, maybe, aren't they?
Exactly. They all disappear into London and abroad, really. So I think that's the way it goes. But
yeah, it's a shame, because Bournemouth could be so nice, but again, you never know. The council might change everything, the stroke of a pen, and have a new policy, but I don't hold out much hope. This is the thing, that this pattern that's been emerging, talking to whether it's MPs or people in power or just anybody that's sort of in the know, and you sort of think like, or business people, and you say, look, is the high street as we know it dead? Like, as we know it, like, is something new going to blossom out of it? And no one really knows the answer. And obviously you're on a high street. Firstly, tell me the importance of a high street for anyone listening to this. Like, why is it important to have a thriving high street?
It's, the key message with that is clearly got to be that it's community, and it's being able to make sure that you can walk out your door. You don't have to jump in your car. You can just literally walk out your door, and if you can fill your fridge in your home with everything you need without having to go to a big supermarket and go through that stress on a Saturday, And that's kind of, it's that ease, and that, you might be able to pop into the pub quickly on the way home. And it's just that idyllic kind of shopping experience, I think. Obviously, we're talking about the death of the internet on our high street, and where everyone buys a lot online these days. But it's so important. And like I say, it changes and evolves all the time. I think there's a lot more bars and restaurants than the community want on the high street now. But what else are you going to put in if it's not charity shops, hairdressers, and it's just getting a good mix. But you always need a couple of good butchers, don't you? As long as bakers, and as long as those kind of key fundamental businesses are there, it should always continue, hopefully.
It makes you wonder if we say that the government should have a real hands-off approach and really just sort of set the infrastructure, a level playing field, and say, all right, now let's leave it to the consumer to make a choice. If the consumers don't choose to frequent those places, that makes it really tricky. One of my common gripes is that we've got a really buzzing little high street where we are, and I quite like it. But all the local businesses open later and close earlier than the chains. And I'm an early starter. So if I want to grab a coffee or something or go for a walk, I want to get done early. Whereas the locally owned one, which is nice, granted, I like it, but they open a bit later. And you think, well, there's a queue. People want to get in. And, and I think consumers sometimes think, well, I'll just go to Costa. I'll just go. Well, we don't have a Starbucks, but let's say that there is one. I'll just go to Starbucks. I'll go to Greggs. It's not because they're such good quality, but I think sometimes maybe the local business just has challenges that are a bit more harder for them to deal with, or for whatever reason, and open a bit later. And I think the consumers are thinking, well, actually, I want to get in there.
That's the hardest thing of being independent, isn't it, really? And a small business, because you're restricted by your team size and your own amount of energy. I mean,
yeah, of course, that last bit especially.
That's why you're working 6-7 days a week just to kind of tick along. And I think that's one thing as we come on to about the one of the topics we're going to talk about government help in hospitality. I think their key message has been that they're increasing licensing hours just to try and add a bit of support. But there's, I'm already open a good 12 hours a day. I don't really want to stay there an extra 2 hours just to kind of make the money that I was making before,
Well, and also, like any business, not just hospitality, but mostly hospitality, you've got to sort of look at your operating hours and say, okay, I want to trim off all the dead bits. So them saying, oh, you can now open 2 to 4 hours more at night, which are essentially tagged on to the dead bits, is well, why would I do that? I can only see where it helps a little bit, but it almost feels like, I don't know, I don't get that bit. I think that would possibly help your larger chains more. I'm guessing your Wetherspoons and stuff like that, because it would make more sense that would support that sort of larger business that has all of those costs baked in, or at least a lot more costs hedged in at the other end. But for an independent who might think, actually, that's going to cost me loads to staff and do this and that, it doesn't really make sense, does it?
No, and you kind of in a little neighbourhood kind of high street, we don't want venues opening that late.
Yeah,
I think the high street does need to rest and recuperate overnight. And if it turns into an all-day party every day,
well, I'm not sure the neighbours would like it either, especially in the local area like Southbourne. Imagine you start staying up late doing the football parties and stuff like that. I think it won't be long before your neighbours are like, yeah, I'm going to start complaining.
Yeah,
and then they won't support you because you need their support as well. So, talking about customers and neighbours, how do you sort of you've been there 15 years or so? No, 26 years. Sorry, no, 15 years in the Larder House, give or take. How do you go about staying in business for that long? What are the key things that motivate you to do a good job every day? Hospitality is hard. You've been through quite a few windfalls there. 2011 onwards, there's been a few shocks to the system, and you've made it through, the most notable one being COVID. But that's just the most notable one, and probably the biggest one in your business life.
Yeah.
Before that, you would have had the 2008 crash, which you sort of missed. But what would you say has just kept people coming back? What is it you do that really is important to the local area?
Well, for me, it's all about food and drink and quality and provenance, and just kind of really singing the local growers and making sure the food's the best that we can do with the equipment that we've got.
Yeah.
It's a wood-fired restaurant, so we don't go with electric ovens and things. Or gas, so it's literally like a big old style bread oven.
Oh wow. Okay.
This year we've just thrown a charcoal grill in the middle of the restaurant, pretty much. So you can sit around the bar and just see the charcoal cooking your steaks and everything. So it's a real kind of like Basque kind of European style approach to food, but proper cooking. You know, that's the way that food was cooked back in the day. It's how meats were roasted. So it's kind of bringing those old stories back through. And there's, we're pretty unique as a restaurant doing that anyhow, especially in the local area. But I think it's just us always not wanting to reduce quality.
Yeah.
Just maintaining those standards. And like you say, it's hard, and it's got harder and harder since COVID.
Yeah. And it feels like there was a lot of support over COVID. I think so. I don't know. How do you feel? Like, looking at COVID itself, do you think the government took the right approach during that period to help restaurants, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, bounce back loans are real handy. They're still a pain in the back now to try and get those. They're still sat on my bottom line. So that's, especially when we had to use a lot of it just to pay staff who couldn't get furloughed, which was a tricky one. Pay rent when we couldn't open. So that's a pickle. I think one of the ones that probably most of my team would remember would be the eat out.
Mm-hmm.
Dine out, yeah. Eat out to dine out.
Eat out to help out. Something like that, yeah.
Where they just immediately, after months and months of not seeing customers, your tables were full. And all these customers just coming for discounted food. And I think the level of stress it put on the team, because I think if you're going to reopen after that long, a nice gentle approach would have been nice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the money wasn't, it was well welcome, the money, but going straight back into that was pretty hard.
In some ways, though, like, you probably need it, like, as in, because the staff would have forgotten what it was like to serve people of those numbers. So it's sort of like they probably needed it to blow off all those cobwebs. Like, a friend of mine always says, like, he said his staff haven't seen what it was like to serve as many customers as they did pre-COVID. Like, he said, like, because he's never really recovered in his business. And he said every now and then when he had like a really particularly busy night, he's like, you don't really get what we did back then. But looking back on it, he says back then he didn't think he was doing anything special either. So that's sort of weird. Everything is when you start comparing it to another thing is when it really matters.
Yeah, it's definitely changed since COVID. Before, it was a different kind of, there's a different energy to the hospitality. And,
yeah. What's your thoughts on consumer behaviour pre-COVID, post-COVID? There's a lot of anecdotal reports and it's anecdotal, it's just people that I talk to, and they just sort of say customers aren't the same. Like, that they've got different expectations, or they're more stressed, or they're just less friendly. Do you see any of that? Or is it just, do you think it is just anecdotal, or is that a feeling of the owner more so?
No, I think that's totally fair. Diners are, a lot of people learned to cook during COVID when they're locked away at home. So I think there's a lot of opinion that people might, think they know food a lot better than others.
Yeah.
The biggest customer change we've had is, and it's a strange one, but there's a lot more of a leisurely approach to dining. And I think the diners think they can rule the tables a little bit more than they could before. But no-shows is an all-time kind of high, which is a real shame. Just people not really booking tables as such anymore. I think, people, we get a lot more walk-ins than ever.
Okay.
But it's that no-show mentality that's the one that's kind of really jumped up since COVID.
So someone will place a booking and then just not turn up.
Yeah, exactly. And then, it was only a couple of months ago we were still getting, I've got COVID, I can't come to the restaurant. I don't want to hear that anymore, please. Just say you're ill, please don't.
Yeah, just say you're ill, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's weird how, though, anecdotally, you've seen that booking no-shows have gone up, but then also walk-ins have gone up. So is it people just want spontaneity now? They just want it to work to their sort of life. And if they fancy Asian food, they want Asian, if they want Italian, but they'll book a few and then just decide on the day, maybe.
Yeah, it's a seasonal thing. In the summer, people will book the nicest restaurants at the seafront. If it starts raining, then they come back to the high street,
Oh, I see. Okay. Have you tried anything to tackle that, the no-show bit, mostly?
I've been through the whole taking deposits. Then the backlash you get off that of people saying, "Well, I'm not going to book if I've got to pay it." People have.
Yeah, but part of me thinks if they've got that sort of answer, like if that's their combative response, surely that means that they're the type of person that would leave you in the crap.
Yeah, but then footfall's never returned to the way it was before COVID, and I just really didn't want to put another kind of restriction in place that would stop people booking a table.
Could you ever go completely to walk-ins only and no bookings?
Yeah, we did try that a while ago. The other restaurant, I used to have another restaurant too.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just that if people are going to go out, especially where dining's such a treat now, you're going to want to know that you've got a table.
Mm.
And to turn up and organise, it's okay maybe as a couple to go out and, we'll just go somewhere else, it's fine. But if you're a table of 4 and 6 and you're meeting friends and you've got nothing booked, we've had it a few times where people thought they'd book a table, they didn't book a table, or you booked the wrong week, and the death stares they get from their friends. I don't want to put that on to people.
There's just got to be a better answer, hasn't there? And I do wonder, customers for the most part, and I'm a British customer, like we are quite entitled, and we sort of have this, this very British notion that we are the customer and the customer is always right. And I don't think that sort of works like that everywhere else. I think, but I do think that it's unfair on the business owner, the restaurant owner, to have to accommodate such silliness, And I know for the most part, 90% of people that go out want to go out and have a great time. They don't want to mess you guys around. But it's that small percentage of people that really make your job hard. But I guess that is also probably not new. Probably just feels hard now.
Yeah, I mean, it always stings. It always hurts when you get an issue like that. But like you said, you just got to kind of write it off. It's a small proportion of it. But, it's a game of passion. We just want people happy. And we don't, we're there to serve food and drink. It's a pretty simple, notion as a business, feeding, watering people well. So, we don't need the hassle.
Yeah, you want them to just come and have a good time. You don't want them to cause you any grief,
Yeah, don't be a critic as soon as you walk in the room,
I'm baffled by, this is another thing that I'm perpetually baffled about, is with the rise of social media and the need for these social media platforms to have content to keep people constantly glued to their phone. It's turned anybody with a mobile phone or a camera into a food reviewer, and everybody is reviewing something at any point. Like, I was in a restaurant a few weeks ago with my wife and kids, and there was someone on a solo table, which on its a solo table was fine, but he had like a camera set up in front of him, and he was eating his pizza and talking to the camera or whatever. And I was like, wow, and he may have millions of followers, who knows? And it happened to us in the summer as well. Actually, in Bournemouth on the beach with the kids, it was May. It was my birthday. It wasn't the summer quite. And we were just outside where the Harry Ramsden's is on the beach. Yeah. And there was we didn't have any fish and chips for Harry Ramsden's because we were going to Shea Fred's later on anyway in Westbourne. So we were watching this guy prop up a little table, and he just sitting there. He put all his cameras there, and he got fish and chips from Harry Ramsden's, and he was reviewing them on the beach. And I was just like, wow, there's kids kicking sand everywhere. But nowadays, because of the barrier to entry for reviewing now has become so low, or for any sort of video work, every man and his dog is doing.
I hope you told him to go to Shea Fred's afterwards.
Well, we did, but again, I don't know, I sort of don't want to keep telling these reviewers where to go, because the problem is now that for anybody to get any social media traction, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, you've got to have outrage. Yeah. And actually, if you're an honest reviewer, and I mean genuinely, I'm going to the Larder House to eat the meal in good faith and say that meat that I had that was cooked on coal, it was great. It was a 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. It could have been a bit better for me. Or it wasn't to my liking, and this is why. I hate fennel, for argument's sake. Not. I'm just saying as an example. But if it's oh my God, I went to this place, it was vile, it was disgusting. I wouldn't send anybody like that anywhere, because that's nowadays, that's the only way that you cut through the noise on social media. It has to be absolute outrage. Like, and so it would be something like, as an example, I went to the Larder House or I went to Chez Fred. It was so horrible. I had to vomit everywhere. And what's the point? Like, what is the actual point? So I don't think I'd send anybody that I know to anyone that I like or know, because, and I think this is what's happened with reviews now. It's like, how do you compete with, all that noise? You have to be louder and more rude. And I don't, I'm convinced that bubble was going to burst at some point. It's got to, but or maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Maybe it's just going to get worse. But it just feels like everyone's reviewing. But what's the point? Like, I don't look at any of those reviews and say, I'll go there or I won't go there. I'll make my own decision.
Yeah, I don't do a huge amount of social media, really. We like organic growth. I've always appreciated organic growth.
Yeah, I think that's a really important way of growing a business. I know it's hard. It's the hard, long slog of doing that. And I think, but for me, I sort of appreciate that. Like, a lot of the restaurants that I like the most don't scream from social media, look at what we're doing and look at this. It's there to inform, but it's not really there to entertain. If you want to be entertained, you'll go to the restaurant, I guess, or the takeaway. But it's like everyone's social media now, to get through the noise again, is becoming an entertainment source, isn't it? And I'm not knocking them for it, by the way. Anybody listening to this, I'm not knocking. I know what you're all just trying to get through the noise, but all these social media sites, they just want people glued on their phone. They don't want them to come off their phone. So, yeah, the only way they're going to let you grow on their platform is by entertaining people. So, in your mind, then, so you don't ever see a day when a younger person that works for you is going to be like the face of the Larder House and come in and see what we do and all of these types of videos. You just see it as it's a place to inform and come here if you want to try it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So moving on to today's world, because we took a few tangents as always. Before the last budget, what pressures do you think hospitality were already under?
Yeah, well, as we've been talking about coming back from COVID, it's getting people's faith back into restaurants. As I said, people learned to eat out a lot more at home. They're a lot more comfortable at home. They're happier to dine at home and drink at home. To go to a supermarket and shops and things, and it's a less risky, cheaper, affordable way to do things. Yeah, footfall's been the key one. Getting staff, because obviously, Brexit and COVID as well. A lot of our workers went back home during COVID and never came back. So we're talking about European work team who, I think it's fair to say that European workers, they've got a certain ability about them in hospitality, which is kind of untouchable at times, because they've been brought up in that culture, the likes of the French, Spanish, Italians. They've just got this absolute, hospitality backbone, and it's admirable. So, when we've lost quite a few of those back into Russia, it's been hard to retrain.
One of the things I noticed, because a lot of my family is from Cyprus and Greece, but I know a few people from other main European countries. But the main reason why people are so steeped in hospitality is purely because they all have two jobs. You'll see many people that will work in a bank Monday to Friday, and they'll finish at 3:00, and they'll start another job at like 5-6 o'clock working in hospitality. So they sort of have this dual employment, let's say. And then they're not, where would their kids go get a first job? Hospitality, restaurants, tavernas, and again, it's never looked down on. And I think in the UK, unfortunately, I think it is looked down on a fair bit. I think that, most parents, for the most part, I wouldn't, because I was brought up in sort of like the takeaway world, but like most parents, I think that, for example, working in takeaways all my life has given me the ability to speak to lots of different people about lots of different things, because when you've got loads of customers coming in repeatedly, you start to learn how to build this confidence about talking to people. But I do think in the UK, it's like, I'm going to go get a job at, I don't know, such and such restaurant or this place or that place. And I think parents do sort of look down on it over here, which makes it harder, which is why employing Europeans sort of does feel good, because they've been doing it for such a long time.
Yeah, that's that's what the recent move that the government have done about trying to retrain younger people, especially like in the north, into some funding behind hospitality and getting them. I was thinking, why don't they put them into like nursing and like the NHS jobs and things. Why are they throwing them just into hospitality? We want more jobs in hospitality, but we need to be able to find them in the jobs in the first place. That's where we need this.
I do think, I was chatting to Kate Nichols and Alan Simpson from UK Hospitality about this the other day, and they said that I'm paraphrasing a little bit because it was a few podcasts ago, but essentially that was meant to be announced at a different time. But the fact that they bundled it with the budget was almost like, here's some bad news that we're giving you, and also here's a sprinkle of good news. It was never meant to be like that. It was meant to be a good news story on its own, which is we're helping hospitality by creating a better training system, apprenticeships and all that and so on. And she said that it came at a time when people were really stressed and really angry because of the business rates. And she said it wasn't really meant to be framed like that. But she goes, typically the government, not just this one, any government, they try and sprinkle some good news in with a bad to make it look good. Or at least, or less bad, shall we say. So, yeah, she said that was a really good policy that wasn't meant to be used to make everything else look less worse. And she goes, on its own, if somebody had said on its own, in isolation, we now have this new apprenticeship program, and people would be like, actually, you know what? That's actually quite good. That's just what we need for this industry. But she goes, because it came at such a horrible time, she goes, it has sort of marred it a little bit. But she said it is still really good. It is still a really good program. But I guess for the wider economy, who knows why they choose hospitality? Is it cheaper and easier to get people in? But at the same time, if there's a demand problem, you clearly don't need more supply, do you? So,
whereas a lot of the traders I'm talking to, especially where the minimum wage has just gone up, they're cutting the workforce and stepping back in themselves just because they won't be able to afford it.
Yeah,
there is less jobs in hospitality than there's ever been. I don't know the actual figure, but it's one of the highest rates of unemployment that's come from hospitality this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is crazy because I think it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. And yeah, and she was saying, they were both saying about the wage increases, it's going to happen. No government has ever not listened to the Fair Pay Commission. They're not going to start now. And this government did make it a policy that the wages will be going up. And by the end of the term, the 18 to 21-year-old bracket will be gone. And she said they've made that a promise. So she said, don't sit there. And I get her point, actually, because I think she's right. She goes, don't sit there thinking, will it, won't it? It's going to happen. They're going to do it. She goes, no one can change their mind on this. And it's a Labour government, and Labour does believe that people should be paid more for their work. So that's built into not even their manifesto, it's built into their whole reason of being around. So I think most people would think, what they were basically saying is, don't be shocked when they say at the next budget, oh, by the way, wages are going up again. Don't be shocked, because that's something a Labour government will always do. Yeah. And I sort of get that, actually. That's not the surprise for me. That's not the surprise at all for me, I think. There's other things I'd rather be outraged about, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I'm fully up for everyone getting more money, but we just need to where that money's coming from.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I agree with that too, because if you look at some parts in America where they mandated these really high minimum wages, I think Seattle was one of them. The McDonald's is in Seattle, you're looking at, I don't know, $25 for a Big Mac and fries, whereas other parts of America, you're still at the, I don't know, $12, $13, $14, and you think, because why? Because of the minimum wage, right? And I do think, how far do you go before you start saying, well, I've got all these. So I did a podcast the other week with a chap called Giles Fuchs, and he's got a hotel on Burr Island, which is just off Devon. One thing he said is, one thing he worries about is wage compression. So if somebody who's just starting is on nearly £13 an hour, and somebody who's been there for a few years and has a bit of experience is on £15, £16 an hour, what do you do? He goes, that wage gap's getting closer and closer. So, and I sort of joke, it's sort of a joke, but I think it's true, is that, well, what Labour would rather you did was avoid having wage compression by giving the person on £15 an hour, £17 an hour. But that is, and I'm joking, but that's really what they think you should do. And I think, because they see as lifting the minimum wage or living wage, then you have to lift all the wages above them.
Yeah. You're right, it should happen, but it's...
Well, in theory, it should happen, but then you can't, I think customers on the whole say, oh, I approve of this message, But do they? Because they stop coming in, or they don't come in as often. So really, they don't approve of that message either.
That's the biggest issue now. Is we want to stay a fair price, and the way things are going is having to put prices increases in all the time. When all I really want is a full restaurant, it just makes it harder and harder.
Yeah, I think if we look at booze prices for a moment, I know a lot of pubs, they really sort of hate the fact that you can go to a supermarket and buy the booze with a lot less tax attached to it. And one of the things that makes me think all the time is, are we in this country inadvertently promoting being antisocial? So should the tax system, especially when it comes to hospitality, should it be geared around making people more social? So if you're going to go to the pub, there's a bit less tax because you're being social. And if you're going to have a pint at home on your own, maybe that should have a bit more because you're being antisocial. And that's probably not good for anybody, being antisocial. On a whole, I know the odd one person doing it every now and then, it's not the end of the world. But as a whole, I think humans are better when they're being social. And I think, being in a restaurant, a nice full restaurant, it's nice because we're being social. I just wonder if, especially post-COVID, is there room for the government to say, all governments, let's try and look at this, how we can make people more social and getting out and being around? Because if there's lots of families of 6 going out for meals on a Saturday lunch and they're all in a local town centre or high street, then hopefully that would spill out to other things. I'll just pop here first, I'll pop there. I don't know. I wonder, is the government leaving money on the table here by sticking to a very fixed, firm old policy?
Yes, forcing people back into their homes too much, isn't it?
Well, I think it is. It's like, and I don't think it's on purpose. I think that it's just nobody's really looked at it properly. And I think there's a lot of other things going off at the moment that nobody looks at it like that. But I think if you was to break it down to being antisocial or social, the British have a great culture of going to the pub, and I was chatting to my electrician the other day, and I know where we are in Atherstone, everyone on Christmas morning goes to the pub for an hour or two. Yeah. It's quite old fashioned, but that's what they did. And I said to him the other day, you're going to the pub on Christmas Day? And he goes, no one goes no more. And I was just like, wow, that was such a tradition, especially in a lot of working class towns and villages, that people would do that.
Yeah, it still feels special.
Yeah, but is it a sign of change? Is it a sign that we're changing? I know there's a lot of people say, and this isn't my opinion, it's what people say, pubs are closing, but then coffee shops are opening everywhere. Have we become a bit European? Does the younger generation prefer to have lattes than a pint? I don't know the answer. I'm just sort of putting it out there to anybody listening to this.
Yeah, coffee shops are busier because a lot more people are working at home. They can sneak out and have a coffee and get their work done still. But
and then that's a worry, isn't it? What are we saying to people? You can work from home, you can eat and drink from a supermarket cheaper from home. And I get you, on the whole, I think supermarkets should be taxed differently, because if you are cooking it yourself, then there shouldn't be VAT and so on. I get that, But at the same time, if everything's home, what are we actually saying to people? It's okay to be a hermit. I don't know how good that is for socializing and mental health.
I just can't get my head around why business rates have dropped for supermarkets. That's the
yeah. Oh, and a friend of mine said to me about this today. So he was saying, did they have as much support? Did they have the drop over COVID that hospitality had? And I didn't get the answer because I didn't have time to prepare. I suspect they probably didn't. And not that I'm trying to stick up for them. I just suspect they probably didn't. I know a few people banding around the figures that the likes of Selfridges and Harrods in London have had not a huge increase, but they're saying they didn't have a huge drop either. So, and I think a lot of this is, again, we're coming out of COVID, we'll come out of it a few years ago, and no one's made firm, solid pledges or decisions to actually fix the problems moving forward. And we've got a government that had a real strong mandate coming in. They had a huge majority for what they needed. And I genuinely thought, I know you said earlier you did sort of vote for them, and I didn't, which is fine. It's not about that. But I was sort of happy that someone came in with a good majority that could actually get things done. Even if I did fully agree with everything, that's fine. I think change is good regardless. And I just think that they haven't really, in my mind, I don't feel like they've done much with it yet.
No, I know that it's a tricky job to fix.
I think you've got years and years and years of old sort of problems, and then you've got COVID that created a lot of knee-jerk reactions, and then you've got industries that have all, and you see, we just look at hospitality or we just look at retail, whereas there's every organization or trade body is screaming at the government. I noticed this in the last government towards the end as well. Like, you've got the National Bricklayers Association, you've got the National such and such association. Everyone's just screaming, we need support, we need support.
Yeah.
And how do you filter out through the noise? If you're the government, who are you listening to? Like, and I know our side will say, oh, we need a tourism minister or a hospitality minister. And I'm like, but again, that's just another voice. I don't think it creates anything. I think that they're looking at the data they look at, and that's it. Again, not trying to defend them, just trying to be devil's advocate here. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but
yeah,
I guess you've got to look at jobs and who does the, yeah.
So tell me about what broke the camel's back. What made you guys a couple of weeks ago say, we're sick of this shit, like, we need to do something?
Yeah, so I've got a local industry group called the Wonky Table. I think you know Andy.
I don't know Andy. I've never met him. I invited him on the podcast a couple of years ago, but we just never made it happen. But I know of him.
Yeah, so he set up the Wonky Table during COVID. A little industry hospitality group, just kind of supporting everyone during those times, and, you know, offering people advice on where they could get extra funding from or any help they needed. And since then, mainly in the last couple of years, he's been really trying to look at VAT, bringing it to a sensible level. I think in the end, we kind of decided, probably rightly, that 13% was our kind of target. And that's where we thought we could actually get some real help back into the sector and kind of really start to look at the word growth and try to get things back on track. So we, I got invited up by my local MP the night before the budget to meet Rachel Reeves. So I got 5-10 minutes with her, just kind of explaining about hospitality, kind of my point of view. I made the point that I've got half the team that I had this time last year, just because footfall's dropped, and that we really, you know, I want to get at that point that I can employ people again, because I love training people. I've trained quite a lot of people who kind of worked all over the country now, but we just need some support. And like the key way is, you know, to drop VAT down to a sensible level. So I took a letter from the Wonky Table as well, hand-delivered that to her, and then kind of obviously sat there the next day just kind of waiting, fingers crossed, everything crossed, just hoping that we'd get some little nugget of hope. We didn't expect it to be this kind of very sly addition to business rates going up, which, you know, it's affected my place. They've got about 25% up in the restaurant for me. I've got a cheese delicatessen across the road called Parliamentary. That's gone up even higher than my restaurant, which I need to look into that. Doesn't seem quite right. But then hearing stories from other restaurants on the high street that theirs have almost doubled, the local Tesco's and Sainsbury's of a similar size to their restaurant dropped by half. And I was kind of thinking, this all across the whole country is going to be devastating for some high streets. You know, something needs to be done now, because it's, you know, talking to a few of the traders, they didn't even know their business rates had changed, or they'd now be going in for having to pay business rates. And it was really concerning what the future looks like for a lot of people.
Yeah. What was it like spending a few minutes with her? Like, I guess I'm sure as a person, she's probably lovely. She knows how to be around people. So I guess on the whole, I guess she would have been nice.
Yeah.
Did you think she got what you were saying?
I imagine her head was quite busy.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Yeah.
The night before the budget, and I'm sure the budget would have been written by that point, because it was about 8 o'clock when I spoken to her. Yeah, I guess she already knew what she was decided by then.
You're not deluded enough to think that whatever you say in that moment, she's going to take on board. Like, you know, she can't, and she's going to be nice, so she's going to say, yes, I agree, and you're not expecting her to go back to the office that night and be like, shit, I've got to fix this. I just spoke to them. They're not happy, obviously. But like, do you think they get the gravity of the situation?
I really don't think they do, to a certain degree. I mean, they've obviously. I was in a room with lots of small to medium sized business operators and people talking about like hydrogen as an energy source, and there's some quite vocal people in there firing in all these, you know, massive industries as well. And I don't think we just don't feel respected enough in hospitality now.
I'm trying to think Is that because, like, it is one of the oldest professions? It's been going for a long time. Yes, it's not hydrogen, it's not solar, it's not electric, it's not all of this. Do you think it's sometimes just seen as, well, it's been around long enough, we can keep doing what we do and it will carry on in its own way, it will bumble along? Like, do you think it's a bit like, when it's not sexy and it's not futuristic?
I think what you're saying, maybe you should understand the government understand the social side of it and the importance of people sitting down around a table, or a group of local traders even having a chat about what's going on in their lives and everything. And there's more money spent now on mental health than anything. I just think people need to get out. Like I said, people are locked away in their homes all the time.
Well, I've often said on this podcast that half the problem is that we look at it from they look at it from a business point of view. Instead, if they looked at it from a mental health, the UK health point of view, NHS, imagine if people were going out and being social and having a good time, rather than doing all these things at home and being lonely and being sad. Like, imagine all of these things, like, having a huge benefit on the economy, and it's always things that are behind the scenes. A friend of mine, he's got some mental health problems, and he finds that when he goes out and he's with a group of people, whether it's just having half a pint of Guinness at the pub on a Saturday afternoon with his mates, like, he's a different person. And I've seen where on a couple of Saturdays when he's not done that with his mates, because he needs his routine. If he's not done that, he's at the therapist on a Monday or Tuesday because he can't cope. And you think, well, just imagine that half a pint of Guinness, just sitting down with the lads for a couple of hours. Like, and you think, wow, like, so imagine the on cost if people were more social and just going out and having a great bloody time. Like, we're just asking people to go out and be happy. Like,
there's a lot to be said for a smile and a laugh, eh?
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. But yeah, so obviously the next day the budget lands. You're obviously at this point a bit stressed. I think it was about a week after, give or take, I get a call off you and Ricky, and you're both a bit like, what do you think of this? We're going to do this. And I was a bit like, I think I'm fair to say now that I was a bit like, I wasn't sure if you were going to do it. I think you'd already made your mind up anyway, I think. But I was like, I'm not sure how well it would work, but give it a go. What have you got to lose, sort of thing? And obviously, and I think I said something like, I like a little bit of chaos. So yeah, I'd probably want to do it myself, but whether I would is a different story. So you've gone and done it. And I can see the campaign sort of sprawled a little bit. And the message seems to be that Labour MPs are banned from pubs, whereas actually it started off as banned my venue, essentially, where it's a restaurant. And now I know the message is pubs, but it's not really. It's restaurant and pubs, or hospitality across the board. Yeah. So what made you think, what? I know you've told me, but what made you think, telling, for the listeners' sake, that this would be a good idea?
Yeah, a few people have said it. We should just ban. It comes out casually over a beer. Well, just ban them, and then let them kind of realise what it's like if we're not going to be here. It hit our local MP quite hard that the high street reacted in a way that he wouldn't be able to go out. I just think the whole campaigns are very kind of honest, but reflective of how things could be if things don't change.
See, I think you told me as well, you got nothing against your MP because you think he was quite supportive, or over the years has been quite supportive. Is that right? Have I got that right? Or is that
no. So what he does in the local area,
yeah,
it's great. But this wasn't about him. This was about setting something off which we thought would go across the country and that people would jump onto.
Yeah, and
it was a bold, kind of brave. It was an interesting few days when they went up and in the local. In the high street, I got very mixed feedback from a lot of people, but the momentum that is picked up 1 week later has been incredible.
It's really tricky because obviously you want to create noise, you want to create a bit of oomph, it's political shock, whatever you say it is, yes. And you're trying to rally the troops, which is customers. You're trying to get them to jump on side to make a decision. You're trying to alienate a group, which is MPs in this instance. What made you just the people in power, Labour? What made you say all MPs? Not say all MPs, because could that have been more effective? Saying, trying to rally all MPs, whether it's Shadow, whether it's Lib Dem, whether it's all sorts, getting them all banned.
I just think we need to really look at where we are now and who's running the country now. Yeah, I get there's different levels of it, but I think just for that clear message. I think if it was then spread across all MPs, it'd be a bit more of a diluted message.
Okay.
With less impact on the current Chancellor. Obviously, effectively, we banned all Labour MPs from coming in. We had a nice little strapline at the bottom, hashtag taxed out. And that's exactly where we feel we are now, because we just feel that we're getting to a point that we just want growth, and we just feel that we're kind of going the opposite way at the moment.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify for your sake as well, because I know people will feel quite charged about this, because we do live in such a political climate. I remember when I first started in my dad's business, I remember he said, we don't talk about religion, politics or sex. And now we live in a world where everyone talks about everything. Like it just seems like that's just the world we're in. But obviously you wanted to make it clear as well that it isn't about Labour. It is about the fact that they're just in power right now. And so it's not as political as what it sounds, because you're not actually moving people around and saying, here, vote for these guys. You're just saying we're pissed off with the people that are in power right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I keep on saying to people that if you actually think about the ban as itself, in terms of the scale of it, right, it's now gone viral. I don't know what it needs to become viral. I don't know, but apparently it is now viral.
I know a while ago when someone banned, I can't remember, I think it was Nigel Farage, and then there was a big split at the time in this local area where loads of people supported it and loads of people hated it. And I guess this is tribal politics today. Do you worry that you could have alienated some people?
Yeah, I've spoken to a few people and I've sat down and they have boycotted me this week until the point they sat down with me and understood what it was really about. They were worried where it was funded from.
All right.
In terms of the stickers, and they thought they didn't actually realise it was me who started the whole thing up. And I just said, look, all I've done is bought, I don't know how many stickers we bought, 1,000 or so. So that's, it's just a little kind of bit of our story. But yeah, it's not being funded by something dark. Which is one thing. It's just kind of just the honesty with where it is now. And as I said, there's only about 406, I think, Labour MPs across the whole country.
Yeah.
I think how many people are going to be affected and retail as well, but hospitality and retail, there's going to be more than 406 businesses.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to lose more than 406 by spring next year anyhow. So in terms of a ban, I don't think it's that harsh really, is it?
No. Again, it's political theatre, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got to, again, like we said earlier about social media, if you want to make noise in the normal media, you need to be loud, you need to make bold actions. And as far as actions go, it's not the end of the world. Like I say, it's just inconveniencing and maybe embarrassing an MP a little bit. In their day-to-day, they'll probably get a lot more stick than that. If this is the most they've got to worry about, then I sort of worry for them anyway. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see genuinely if it comes into effect. If an MP was going to come to your restaurant or pub or takeaway or whatever, and someone actually follows through, that would be interesting. Because obviously that probably, I'm not sure if it's happened yet. I'm sure you'll hear reports of it soon. But, when someone wants to take their family out for a Sunday lunch, like right now, is someone actually going to be able to say, sorry, like you can't frequent here? Yeah, that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I've not seen it myself yet, but
all in good time, I would imagine. So, business rates are hard. They're mostly really hard on restaurants and pubs. Food retail really don't see a lot of effect from that. I won't lie to you. I don't think there's many takeaways that would fall into business rates because of their small businesses and so on, and especially if they're independently owned. I only know of a couple of fish and chip restaurants and a couple of chains that are really affected by it, but for the most part, I know if we write a story talking about business rates in our industry, nobody clicks because it just doesn't affect them at all. So it is something that truly is a high street issue, a restaurant and pub issue, really, and high street retail. But looking broadly, in your mind, what does a healthy tax system or business setup or infrastructure look like for government to implement for restaurants, let's say, or restaurant and pubs, hospitality?
I just think they need to look at the bottom line for everyone and kind of see there's just too many points now that there's another little, the war in Ukraine and the prices of food going up and everything, and that especially hit your industry hugely, fish and chips. And it's just got to be fair. I think the whole thing just needs to be reevaluated. I mean, there's so many little different levels of taxation now, and business rates, are they really that helpful to anyone? it's a confusing one, isn't it?
Well, Conservatives have said that when they get into power, they'll off that. That's something they've said already. But is that something they just move somewhere else? Because again, they're dealing with small percentages here. It just feels like if we move this from here, we've got to put it there. And dropping VAT to 13%, let's say, I like the idea of that. I don't know if it benefits me as a consumer. Probably helps you guys more for the foreseeable future until things gives you a bit of a breathing space for things to settle out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It probably helps chip shops a lot to help them get over this uncertainty they've had with fish prices and such. But I wonder, is the government just going to play deaf to this sort of thing? And not because they want to, but purely because dropping it to 13% is billions of lost revenue. And then if you then argue that, dropping business rates, scrapping it, let's just use the word scrapping it to zero. Can they afford to do these things? We seem to have funding crises everywhere.
Yeah, but we talk about growth, aren't we? And I think even what you're saying with different sectors, I've spoken to quite a lot of builders and plumbers who just say they're just quieter at the moment. People are spending less money.
Oh, I'd agree with that. Yeah. I'd agree. I think from my point of view, I've just got to be a bit devil's advocate and also say, is the government always going to say we cannot look at this because of X, Y, Z, as opposed to going back to my other argument earlier, which is let's look at it from a different angle. Let's look at it from the public health angle, because if people are spending money outside, then that's a good thing, surely, rather than just sort of sitting at home and saying, I'm not spending anything because I'm afraid to go out. And I would rather celebrate a society where people feel happy going out to the pub or to a restaurant and have a good time. That's just the way I am. But I guess you've just got to find that balance, haven't you?
Yeah, I think there's a desire for the UK to have a bit more of a European culture.
I agree with that, yeah.
Pavement licenses, and they're more than happy for people to go outside dining and everything. But we need those areas full. So, bringing VAT down, which will obviously, inevitably, it will bring the cost of your meal down. Say you come out for dinner spending £100, there's going to be an instant saving anyway, if you take that 7% off that.
Yeah, I think, though, to be fair, I don't know if it'd be instant. I think it would be, if I'm honest, I think it would take time for those savings to filter in. I think that what we'd see is that a lot of increases wouldn't happen. So that's a good thing, because why would you put increases up if you've got that extra VAT to play with, or that extra money, because it's not VAT when it's reduced. So then you've got that extra money to play with. So what you'll probably see is that price increases don't happen as fast as they would. I don't think anybody in their right mind would drop that whole amount to their customers. I don't see it. I think they'll, and that's not a negative. It's just what people need to do to get by. But if it's there, if it gives them some more wiggle room, some buffer to then stay in business, grow, have a bit more fun with the menu, then maybe that's probably what it's there for. It reminds me a bit more of what the VAT reduction was there for COVID. It was there to probably keep people in business and to keep the economy stimulated, as opposed to giving consumers a discount.
Yeah, I wonder if people would have more support if we didn't include it in our pricing. They just saw it on the bottom.
I think customers choose to ignore VAT. I think they choose to ignore that it exists and keep blaming the shop owner or the business owner for it. I think that I've been in business a long time, and I think a lot of people say, oh, it should be more like America, where you go out and it's the price of the meal plus state taxes plus tips. So ignore the tips bit because we're not talking about that, but just state taxes, where you bolt it on and it's always separate. And anything you buy in a state in America, you go to a supermarket, it might come to $100, but you get to the till when it's $112.50 and it's bolted on. And they're saying, what if the UK was like that? Would that not be better? And for a long time, we couldn't do that. The way that when we were in Europe, the European Union, shall I say, there is a clause within their terminology of promoting VAT that it has to be inclusive. It can't be exclusive. That's not the case no more. But would consumers react well to it? I don't know. Even if you gave a customer a little receipt and at the bottom you circled it where it says tax or highlighted it,
yeah,
people don't even do that. And I wonder.
I guess if it from a business marketing point of view, if you're seeing them cheaper, you can then promote the price you're charging. To get footfall back into your places. I know there's still going to be that tax on top, but We just don't want to
Yeah.
be seen to price ourselves out the market all the time.
So let's finish on an imaginary conversation. You're back in front of Rachel Reeves and you've got 10 minutes and there's nobody else in the room and she's not got a budget tomorrow to worry about. Yeah. You've literally got her attention. You're on a train with her and it's just you and her. What are you telling her? Break down your points of what you're telling her from you and the wonky table.
Yeah, I have to just talk about the pure passion and people in hospitality and how important it is for people to go into restaurants, bars, cafes, to see high streets full of people just sat down having fun, families connecting, and the importance of supporting our own kind of food system, whether it's bringing stuff from Europe or looking after farmers locally. There's so much connection to hospitality in terms of everything that we're just vital, and we need to kind of stay present, because in hospitality we use every other trade going. It's we do employ electricians, plumbers, the whole thing. There's tech behind it. You need to be quite skillful to be a manager in hospitality, because there's so many things you need to deal with. One shift you'd be underneath a sink fixing that, and then worrying all your power's blown up.
Yeah, you have to be quite resourceful. You've got to be quick on your feet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whilst the pressure of trying to get food out of the kitchen.
Yeah, and the dishwasher breaks.
Yeah, exactly. But we just need some breathing room at the moment.
Yeah.
Just to get some, after 2011, 2013, I opened my cocktail bar upstairs. So there's always been growth for me. Then 2017, I used to have a green Michelin star tapas restaurant called Terroir Tapas just down the road. That closed a couple of years ago just because, again, footfall was down. But I was always used to growth and having a big team and kind of just seeing people go after bigger, better jobs and everything. And I just feel that that's just stopped. And I just really want it back. And I want to see people in hospitality being super successful and the new openings to spring up again. It to be respected as a proper, an industry. And they need to see how important it is to the bottom line and how much money we do actually put into government.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, James, thank you for your time, especially on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, it's been great. You really put your stories across well. And I think anybody listening to this, it's hard to disagree with the passion and the story behind hospitality. And it's not just a business case. I think we make a mistake by making it just a business case. We've got to look at it as a society case, especially when society is as fractured as it is, when we've got mental health as record highs than it is. And I'm not saying that going to the pub and the restaurant is going to make everything right, but actually locking people at home in their own little silos of social media is a curse. And we actually have something we know works. Getting out there, getting out into society, having half a Guinness with your mates, or going for a friend of mine, another one, goes on bike rides and they stop at a little pub and they just have a half a pint at everyone they go to. And I think we miss those traditionally British things, that make Britain, going out for a pint, doing this. And I think that, and if you want to bring in some of the Europeanness, bring that into the fold too, I think that's great too. I really do. More the merrier. I really do think more the merrier. And it'd be a shame just to sort of if your government put your bets on big business, because that'd be a shame too. I think if you start at the bottom, it filters all the way up. Yeah.
We don't want an industrialized food system in this country too much. We need real chefs still cooking real food. So we need to be able to go to our high street greengrocers and pick those vegetables up and, get nutrition back into our restaurants as well. That's a key one.
Yeah. It'd be a shame for chefs just to look at the bottom line and say, well, I can't use that meat because I've got to use this one. And it'd be a shame for it to be like that. Yeah. So, well, James, on that note, thank you so much. Have a great day and we'll talk again soon.